Would you please rise? Commissioner Dean, would you please introduce the invocation?
Yes, our invocation today will be given by Reverend Richard King, who is senior pastor for St. James AME Church.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, the one who calls us to live, move, and have our being, the giver of every good and perfect gift, the source of all righteousness, wisdom, and knowledge. We pause now to express our sincere gratitude by saying thank you for the bountiful blessings which thou hast bestowed upon each of us. We declare today that you've been mighty good. Our vocabulary does not contain the words to adequately express just how good you've been, but we know you've been good to us. We humbly request divine assistance for the mayor, commissioners, and all who will have a part in this meeting today. Dear God, keep them mindful of their responsibilities to you and the people they represent. Help them to be unselfish in dispensing their duties. Fill them with knowledge and wisdom to make decisions that will meet your standards and be for the good of all the people in the city of Apopka. We ask it all in thy Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend King. Today is Apopka's birthday. We're 133 years old today. On September 2nd, 1882, the citizens of Apopka voted to incorporate as a municipality. The city limits were charted 1 mile in each direction from the Orange Lodge, a historic site located just a few blocks to the east on Main Street in downtown Apopka. The borders included 26 voting citizens. I think we exceed the population of Apopka, the original population of Apopka here today. Here are some notable things that occurred in 1882. Chester Arthur was serving as the 21st President of the United States. Thomas Edison's new electric company lit up a square mile of lower Manhattan and served electricity to 200 customers. The outlaw Jesse James was killed in St. Louis, Missouri. And the New York, Chicago, and St. Louis railroads ran the first trains from Buffalo, New York to Chicago. And so today, as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, let us reflect upon the rich history of Apopka and the civic-minded residents who helped make Apopka the great city it is today. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for our first meeting of the month of September. I want to start off by welcoming everyone here today. I want to make mention of the fact that our policy is that everyone is entitled to speak before the Apopka City Council. Our policy is that if you would like to speak, that you limit your remarks to no more than 4 minutes. And if you would like to, after you exhaust your first 4 minutes, if you'd like to come back up and speak, we'd ask that you limit your remarks to no more than 60 seconds. And so we'll proceed on that basis. Also want to note the presence of an elected official in the audience today. We have Orange County Commissioner Brian Nelson's with us. Welcome, Brian. All right, and the first thing on our agenda is employee recognition. We've got 3 employees who are celebrating anniversaries. Is Samuel Anderson with us? All right. How about Charles Rogers? No Charles. All right, we'll make sure we get him. I have seen Ray Thompson in the room. Ray? Celebrating 25 years with the city of Apopka. Ray began working for the city on August 6th, 1990 as a firefighter. On February 4th, 1991, Ray was promoted to firefighter first class. He was promoted to fire lieutenant on December 9th, 1999. On January 13th, 2004, Ray was promoted to fire captain. He was promoted to Assistant Fire Chief on October 1, 2009, and on January 22, 2014, Ray was promoted to Deputy Fire Chief, which is his current position. Congratulations, Ray.
Wow.
Good job.
You're the man.
All right. "25 years is pretty impressive. All right, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that a council member would like to pull for discussion? Good? All right. If there's nothing that anyone would like to discuss, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with 4 items.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ruth, second by Commissioner Velasquez. Commissioner Dean.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was busy synchronizing mine.
Okay.
My bad. I would like to know, with all due respect, why are we paying $16,600 to an engineering company to do a study as to, I assume, where the fire department, the new fire building will be?
If you remember, during our budget workshops, we talked about, especially these were the workshops in July, we spoke about there not only is a need for a 5th fire station, but there's a need for a 6th fire station. And we were having trouble at the time coming up with the money to pull that money out of our general fund budget. And so the discussion was, shouldn't we have new growth, new subdivisions coming online help pay for building new fire stations instead of making the general citizens of Apopka pay for it. And so the end result of that was, the idea is a fire impact fee that would be assessed on new construction as opposed to trying to pay for a new fire station out of our general fund. And this study would provide the basis for that. So that's the $16,000 that we've included in this.
So they're going to tell us how we can impose this $16,000.
No.
For the fire.
How we can impose a fire impact fee
Right.
on new construction.
And we got to pay $16,000 for that?
That's what the study costs. Which is actually, Glenn, Reese Engineering, explain about Reese Engineering, and they're on contract with the city already.
Yes, sir. The city has a continuing contract with 2 engineering firms, Reese Engineering and H2M Hill. Reese Engineering has a person that can actually do rate studies on board, a separate company that they subcontract to. We're already using them for a rate study having to do with utilities, so we figured this would be just a segue into other studies that we need at the time. We do not have to go out for quotes, bids, or anything else. We can just select because they are under continuing contract.
So in essence, we were saying that this company will do all of the legwork for us.
Yes, sir, right on up to actually helping Linda write the ordinance if necessary.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
So we get another bite at the apple. I mean, we get it if we get the results of this study back and we decide, well, maybe we don't want to do that. We can choose to do that at that option. But if the sentiment of the council is that we want new growth to help pay for building new fire stations, you have to have the study as a basis upon which to proceed if you're going to go that way.
I'm not clear on it right on. Look like the city manager could more or less do this work?
Go ahead, Cliff.
Unfortunately, Commissioner, a lot of cities would like that to be the case, but the reality is these impact fee ordinances are incredibly detailed in terms of the studies that back them up. And here's why that's important. First of all, you should feel some sympathy from your other cities who have to pay the same kind of rates to get these studies, whether it's for fire, water, or other impacts. The second reason is because those studies then have to hold up in court, because if a developer challenges it and says this is inequitable and the formula is not right and you don't have adequate data, the person who does the study or is going to be the spokesman for that company has to come to court and testify as to the methodology, the background and experience that gave them the authority and the experience to make the conclusions and justify it. If the study doesn't hold up to scrutiny, legal scrutiny, as a judge determines, then not only does your ordinance fail, but also you're looking at massive rebates of impact fees illegally collected because it's not backed by an adequate study. So this study is like an insurance policy. You hope you never need it, and if you do need it, it better be good.
Okay? All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda with 4 items. Is there any further discussion by the council? No. Discussion by the public? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are down to, under legislative ordinances and resolutions, ordinance number 2446. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2446, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, establishing Martin Road Interchange Trust Fund, providing for the funding of the Martin Road Interchange Trust Fund, providing for administration of the Martin Road Interchange Trust Fund, determining the tax increment to be deposited into the Martin Road Interchange Trust Fund, establishing the base year for determining the assessed values relating to property located in the Martin Road Interchange project area for tax increment purposes, providing for annual appropriation of the tax increment, appointing the mayor or his designee as trustee of the Martin Road Interchange Trust Fund, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
All right. Is there a summary before we get started with public input? We've had a lot of discussion about this to date. And if there's no other discussion by the staff, I'm going to go ahead and open. Go ahead.
Hold on. MMI does have a brief presentation.
Okay.
I believe they'd like to do.
Mike, would you come forward?
Mayor, Commissioner Vasquez, Commissioner Dean, Commissioner Aerosmith, Sam, Commissioner Ruth, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you again today on this. This is my 3rd time at the podium, or 4th time, not sure, to talk about this. I'll try to make it brief and not wind this out for 20 or 30 minutes that I originally thought this would take. But what I would ask you to do today is to affirm a 5-0 vote on the first reading of this ordinance that we had back on August the 5th. That was about a month ago. So we've had a lot of discussion over the last 30 to 45 days, not only with the mayor and the commissioners, quite a number of citizens in the community, as late as this morning and even yesterday. There's been a lot of knocking on doors and talking to folks and taking a temperature of the community. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of that temperature at this point. You know, in a big picture sense, really what we're talking about here is economic growth. I kept telling myself on the drive up here, what is it that we're really talking about here? We're really talking about economic growth. I don't think there's anybody in the city of Apopka that's against economic growth. We need economic growth. I'll tell you, the city that I grew up in, you could put 20 of those inside the city of Apopka. It was me and my 2 brothers and 3 cousins. We all left town because there was no opportunity in that town. And, you know, my parents didn't like it. My grandparents didn't like it. But, you know, we were typical of a family there. And, I think the decisions that were made in that community then and now and over the past 30 or 40 years have affected whether or not people stay in their community and be part of that community. It's really tough if you don't have the appropriate amount of economic growth. a vote on this project is important not only for economic growth that it will bring, because it will bring economic growth. It's also important to send a signal to the business community, not in Apopka necessarily, but in Central Florida, the state of Florida, and even outside the state. There's a lot of people around the country looking to Florida to do business, come here and do business, and then they have to determine who's on the short list of that, of those areas that they're going to bring their businesses to. They want to know that the local government is business friendly. There's a lot of competition amongst cities, counties, and even states for businesses, and we're involved with that on a daily basis, trying to understand where businesses are going to move to, what kind of services they're going to need, what kind of economic growth those businesses are going to generate. This is one of those days that these decisions are made that are going to dictate not only if you have economic growth, but what does it look like. Economic growth can be a residential, it can be commercial, it can be some mixture of that. I think Apopka's history, from what I'm completely deviating off my notes here for some reason, but I think Apopka's history has been basically to become a bedroom community for Orlando, and I don't know that it's necessarily participated in the growth that some of its sister cities have experienced over the years, but I think a vote for this today, and there's going to be detractors, and will be a vote for economic growth. It's going to be a vote for creating conditions that the business community perceives this is a place where we can get business done, and that we're going to have a helping hand. Being in business and making a profit and meeting a payroll is extremely difficult. It's nice to know that you have a partner in that effort. And whether we like it or not, the government plays a very large role in that effort. So what is it specifically we're talking about? Well, I want to divert your attention to this map right here. I took a photo off of Google Earth, and it's, to me, is kind of a big picture of what we're here talking about. But if you're looking here, this is 414 going back to Maitland, back over there. It comes here, get on the interchange, go back, you go through this interchange, which doesn't have any exits, by the way. Then you go up this road here, you get on the 429, going up to what will eventually become the Wekiva Parkway. If you come this way, you'll come down here, you can go down actually towards Disney and East West Expressway and New Independence Parkway, Fowler's Grove Shopping Mall. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. I love going there, except there's nothing you can't get at Fowler's Grove. And then you could loop up here and go up to the city of Apopka on the west side of Apopka. But there's one thing interesting about all of this. There's not one interchange on this map. There's no way to get off of this road and get into this area of Apopka. This is South Apopka. What I have here is the hospital. And what we have here, and I drew on these little red lines, is that's where the interchange would go. This is a logical location from an engineering and planning standpoint on where an interchange should go. It's something that's needed. It's something that is going to cost money. I have a plan to spend that money. It's my money. 100% of it's my money on the front end. I take all the construction risk. And that plan is going to be something that generates economic growth for South Apopka. There's no question about that. Let me talk a little bit about the tax base of Apopka, because I think this is important. It's important, and I received a call from one of my opponents, and we had a discussion about this. I tried to explain to him why I thought this is important, actually, to help the taxpayers. And let me explain that a little bit. And it ties back to my earlier comment about being a bedroom community and having a substantial amount of residential homes. You really need a larger tax base as it relates to commercial activities. The more commercial activities you have, the less of a burden it's going to be on the residential taxpayers. I think that's very important. And I think the mix is a little bit out of balance with Apopka. This will help it happen. Let me talk about why this is important for this area. This is South Apopka. It's where the hospital has decided to locate. Without traffic getting off of that interchange, this area is not going to grow to its potential for economic growth. It's important for South Apopka. It's important for the small area study. It's important for Florida Hospital. And it's important for the city's taxpayers, because we are going to be generating, this is not going to generate residential growth as much as it's going to generate commercial growth. Commercial growth is going to help lessen the burden to the city's residential taxpayers. That's a fact. If somebody doesn't want to believe that, I could show them reams and reams of studies where it's in any city's or county's interest to have a larger commercial tax base to lessen the load on the residential taxpayers. The Central Florida Expressway Authority created this artery going through South Apopka, but they did not provide for any means for the lifeblood of that artery to come out of that artery and spread its benefits into that area. Now, the lifeblood that we're talking about is traffic. The traffic's going to have people in it. They got money in their pocket. They're going to be shoppers. They're going to be business people. They're going to be people looking to get to Florida Hospital in a logical manner, which now they cannot do. And that's going to create economic growth. Some say that this area will develop anyway without the interchange, and I'm going to tell you that's not accurate. It's not going to happen. You're going to continue to have residential only. Those residents are not going to have the commercial services that they need, because they won't be able to survive without shoppers and patrons being able to easily get to where they want to have their businesses, because that's not the case now. And what are we talking about when we're talking about commercial services? We're talking about, I listed some that I would like to see where I live. I'd like to have a Publix. I'd like to have a Walmart neighborhood grocery. I'd like to have an Aldi. I don't know if anybody knows about Aldi. It's probably one of my favorite grocery stores. Like Fresh Market, Walgreens, CVS, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, and Target. These are all service providers that are needed in that area, and they're not going to happen without this interchange. It's just not going to happen. These are all companies that provide good job paths. These are companies that have retirement plans, they have health care benefits, they have sick pay, they have maternity leave. They are very high-profile national companies. If we can get this interchange here, we can encourage these companies to come here by creating a business-friendly community. We're going to have a place where people can walk to work and have a good lifelong job. They don't even need a car to get to these places of employment. Only the City Commission can make this happen today. It would be I think a tragedy to make the wrong decision today and not vote for economic growth. Is my plan a perfect plan? Is it a plan that everybody understands? Probably not. It's a plan that I've worked on for well over a year. I've had the pleasure of working with the mayor and the staff for 6 to 9 months. And I think it's a plan that's ready to go. It's a plan that has me putting up 100% of the interchange. The city has no construction risk. And then it's going to have a commitment to a minority of the total cost of building that interchange. I had a lot more to say today, but what I wanted to wind up with is progress that's positive is not easy. Whether it's women trying to get the right to vote, whether it's our African American brothers getting the right to vote, there's a lot of ways that progress is very painful. It's generally not understood when it's taking place, But people look back 10, 15, 20, and 50 years later and said, you know what, that was not fun, that was not painful, we all disagreed about something, but at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do. Let's don't wake up 10, 15, or 20 years ago and say, I wished we had adopted that ordinance. Let's get this interchange done so we can move the city forward into the 21st century. I'm going to cut my remarks short. I have a lot more to talk about, but I think I've said kind of the big picture of what I'm trying to get accomplished here, and that is a better community, and which I own property in and pay a lot of taxes in. Thank you.
All right. At this point, we're going to open it up for a public hearing. I know that we have some comment cards. Can you
We do.
read off the first three speakers?
Tony MacArthur, Jeff Welch, and Kevin Knudsen.
Kevin Knudsen? Okay. All right, Tony. Is it one sheet?
Two sheets taken together.
Okay, so just pass them out as you're walking up here.
And I'd like to make a...
Well, Tony, we're recording this for posterity, so all of your remarks need to be in front of the microphone, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Linda. Comments.
Before the clock is started, I'd like to make a point of order. The previous speaker was given approximately 13 minutes at his own pace and his own discretion as to how long he wanted to talk. I think if those of us also have put a lot of time and effort into this need a little more time, I think we should be granted an additional 2 or 3 minutes if needed, because it would be wholly unfair to allow a for-profit developer to have 3 times the amount of time the other taxpayers have.
Tony, we've got a number of speakers, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Right, so it's unfair. It's unfair for one to get 13 minutes.
Hold on. Everybody knows that I allow a little bit more debate than a lot of people are actually comfortable with. So I would ask that you respect the time limit. I'm not going to cut you off right at 4 minutes, but if you go on for 8 to 10 minutes, you might hear me come back, all right? So,
Okay,
let's go.
I appreciate that. Okay, I'm opposed to this ordinance for many reasons, and I've tried to articulate those in writing to you, and I'll try to verbalize that. However, I want to make clear for the record, I'm not opposed to development, and I'm not opposed to growth in Apopka. I'm just opposed to this financial agreement. It's not a good deal for the citizens of Apopka for many reasons. First of all and foremost, there's no current approved city budget for the next fiscal year, and the only official budget on the table imposes a significant $500,000 increase on the taxpayers. The developer, this agreement gives the developer for up to a 10-year period a 50% rebate on the synthetic tax district, which is land outside of his land as well, rebate, okay, on taxes. The current budget proposed budget doesn't show that we can afford that, so it's totally inappropriate to consider this agreement at this time before we have next year's budget. It's putting the cart before the horse. Secondly, the city has not formally made a request to the Expressway Authority Board for them to help pay for this interchange. They created some of the problem associated with this. They sold the land to Florida Hospital, so they should certainly be formally asked to be a part of the solution. Right now, the taxpayers of Apopka are the only ones being asked to reimburse the developer for development. And again, it's totally inappropriate to do that without it formally asking the Expressway Authority. If Florida Hospital is going to benefit from this interchange, then again, they should be formally asked to help pay for it. Reimburse the developer, that means, or whatever. Again, it's putting the cart before the horse before you formally ask the other stakeholder to help pay for this. Next, the current agreement essentially gives the for-profit developer a 50% rebate or 50% effective reduction in his tax rate for the area, the synthetic tax area, for up to 10 years. But, and the rest of the taxpayers, are going to provide full service, high quality city services to that area for 10 years, yet the rest of us for 10, 20, 30 years have been paying the full millage rate, and for the next 10 and 20 years. So it's highly inappropriate to ask the rest of us to provide full services to this area and this developer when every year we struggle to meet our budget. Our millage rate does not have fluff in it. We need all the money from the current millage rate to pay for the necessary services, including the services to this new development area. And like I said, thousands of people have paid the full rate for decades, and it's just highly unfair, to ask them to subsidize a for-profit developer for the next 10 years. Our millage rate, current millage rate, is the lowest in the area, and that in itself is an incentive for for-profit developers to build in our areas. We don't need to entice them with 50% rebates to build in our area. Let the economic situation work itself out. The second page here, this half interchange, in my opinion, will significantly increase the value, profit potential, and development options for this for-profit developer. And as such, the developer does not necessarily need to be reimbursed by the taxpayers of Apopka for the cost of building the half interchange, or at least, not the whole cost, because the $6 million interchange, I would say, was going to increase his land by millions of dollars. So why do we need to reimburse him for the entire amount if he's going to increase his land value by millions of dollars? It doesn't make sense, and it's not appropriate. We own, as citizens, the Highland Manor property, and you have Richard Anderson working on getting us proposals for that property. Unfortunately, we own that. It's going to need infrastructure improvements. Money from the Transportation Impact Fee Fund for city-owned roads might be needed to make that property saleable and developable. And since we own that land, that should be our first priority. And until you have a 5 or 10-year plan for the use of the current and future impact fees, I don't see how you can afford the big giveaway that you're doing under this proposed agreement. Has anyone, I've talked to people, no one is even, with the city even that I wear, calculated a time frame of a break-even point for us, where so for 10 years we're potentially providing services to that area at a net loss, and with no indication of when we'll even break even, let alone when we'll be a no-cost district for us. There's many taxpayers in Apopka that could benefit from enhancing their properties and benefit from a rebate, but they're not going to get it. And so I think I've laid out numerous existing valid reasons why, as of today, right now, with the information you have at hand, I've pointed out legitimate reasons why it's wholly inappropriate to enter into such an agreement at this point in time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tony. All right, next speaker is Jeff Welch. And then after Jeff is Kevin Knudsen.
Good afternoon, City Council. Good afternoon, Mayor. I'm Jeff Welch, 1900 Summit Tower Boulevard, Orlando 32810. I see this quite differently. I see this as a win-win-win. I see it as a win for the city and the citizens here. I see it as a win for South Apopka, and I certainly see it as a win for future generations of Apopkans. We're talking about one individual who's willing to take a substantial risk and may or may not get some of that risk back, where the city and the citizens here do not have to take that risk. When we do something like what's needed here, you're right, a bunch of other property owners get value. So just like when the tide comes in, all these ships will rise. What's going to happen with the synthetic tax is we're only talking about the incremental rise in value. So that's not part of your tax base today. That's not part of your budget today. So what will happen is this city will enjoy increased value from all of the people that are impacted by this new exit. And perhaps the gentleman that takes the risk will get some of that back. And why shouldn't he? He's the one that took the risk. He should get the reward. At that time, after 10 years, and for perpetuity, all of the additional tax money will flow to the citizens here. So to me, It really is something that I believe will be a win. It'll provide jobs for that area. South Apopka certainly needs jobs. Here's an opportunity to have retail, to have groceries. I mean, that area is also considered a food desert. There is no grocery store nearby. And from the last point would be, from a public safety point of view, I know Florida Hospital is going to speak on this. You know, my office is in Maitland. If something were to happen to me, I certainly would like to be able to get to Florida Hospital in 10 or 12 minutes as opposed to 20 or 25 minutes. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you will approve this.
Thank you, Jeff. Kevin. And next after Mr. Knutson is Jennifer Wondersley.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Knutson, 412 Lanarkshire Place, Apopka, Florida. As a civil engineer and a roadway engineer, this interchange is desperately needed to provide access to that area of Apopka. The way the interchange system was constructed initially, 429 was the only road through there. You had an interchange at 437 very close to where Florida Hospital is today. But when they moved it over, because they had to be able to extend it for Wakaiva Parkway, they left the old remnant of 451 there and tied the two interchanges together. They're two system-to-system interchanges, which means they have no access except to themselves. So this interchange will open up that whole portion of Apopka for access, for connectivity, and you'll see in the future that the interchange will actually help you not have to improve other roadways within Apopka to carry that traffic in and out of this area. They'll be directed directly there from the interchange. So I'm totally in support of the project, and I do believe it is a good investment for the city of Apopka.
Thank you. All right, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm Jennifer Wonderslavin, the Administrator Vice President for Florida Hospital Apopka, and I just wanted to share my support today for this HAP interchange, as I think it will be a great benefit to the Apopka community. And I don't anticipate that it will directly impact the hospital operations, but it will definitely improve the access to that surrounding area, and with an improved access, there's always value. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are those the speaker cards?
We have more. Pastor King.
Okay.
Pastor King, 1534 Palmstone Drive, Apopka, Florida. And I'm speaking on behalf of the interchange. The interchange would directly impact the economic development, opportunities for the entire city of Apopka, and will be immediately impacting to the south side of Apopka as well. I believe this interchange will provide even more access to the new Florida Hospital being built, especially in the way of emergency access. Looking at the satellite overview of the proposed interchange, I believe this interchange will contribute to breathing new life into a blighted area of our city that desperately need the support of every city elected official and community leaders. I support this interchange and have had the opportunity to speak to the developer about his commitment to assisting this city and its people in becoming a city second to none. And let me just say this right here. I travel that road. I work for Kenpat USA, which is housed in Mr. Cooper's buildings. And I travel that road every day. I would sure hate to get stuck. This interchange will provide another avenue for me to get to where I need to go to get my job done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne Kidd.
Suzanne Kidd, 1260 Lexington Parkway. Mayor, Commissioners, I wholeheartedly support this agreement and this interchange and the funding for it created to equally fund the construction of this interchange. It's a great example of how a public-private partnership can create benefits that inure to both parties. So let's look at that. Clearly, the developer benefits.
He achieves convenient access to his properties along Martin Road, which undoubtedly aids his ability to develop and market the residences that he will eventually build. And the commercial area. He also benefits because the hefty transportation impact fees he would normally pay will now be credited back to him. But I believe the real beneficiary of this innovative agreement will be the city of Apopka, and that's where I'd like to focus my comments. Once Florida Hospital chose to build their new facility at the juncture of State Road 414 and the 429, both limited access highways, it became apparent that the only two surface roads connecting the rest of Apopka to the hospital would be Ocoee-Apopka Road and Martin Road. Recognizing that the hospital's construction would be a catalyst for rapid growth and development in the surrounding area, the city established a roughly 4 square mile district around the hospital through a study known as the Ocoee-Apopka Small Road Area Study. While the intense development for that area is probably 3 to 4 years out and linked somewhat to the time frame of the hospital's completion, the city, in undertaking this Martin Road interchange agreement, is being wisely proactive in making sure the commercial development that will occur throughout the district has the road access needed to assure its success. As this district develops, the city will benefit financially through impact fees, user fees for water, sewer, and reclaimed water, and significantly higher property tax revenues paid on developed land versus the undeveloped land, as is now the case. As this district develops, the city's economy will grow with new business formation, bringing greater employment for our citizens and increased revenues from business and sales taxes that are rebated back to us from the state, which impacts our budget. As this district develops, commercially, the residents of the south side of Apopka will have stores and shops nearby. Currently, the area is practically a food desert, as the gentleman before me mentioned, with grocery stores located miles away and largely inaccessible for those without cars. The commercial development will open up shops and job opportunities for this area. And if I may, just for a moment, if I could look at the map that Mr. Wright was kind enough to put up here. Mr. Wright's property is right here. This is where Martin Ridge apartments are going, and across on the other side of Martin Road is the rest of his property. He plans on having commercial areas right in here. If you follow Martin Road up and around the corner onto Ocoee-Apopka Road, you can see this is 13th Street. So you can see all this area of South Apopka will have relatively easy access to the commercial areas that will be constructed in that area. From a safety perspective, the interchange will permit emergency vehicles rapid access to accidents on the 414 or rapid egress from the 414 to the hospital, rather than having to travel further down the 429, exiting at Ocoee-Apopka Road and working their way back up to the hospital. Despite all of these benefits, though, some have chosen to focus primarily on the city's share of the interchange costs, suggesting that the city is placing itself in financial jeopardy with this agreement. However, a careful reading and analysis of the agreement should put those fears to rest. In point of fact, it is the developer, not the city, whose investment is most at risk. First, the city has agreed to pay only half of 90% of the cost of construction. This means that the city is going to pay 45%, but the developer is on the hook for the remaining 55% of the cost. Second, the city is obligated to continue to pay towards their share only for 10 years. During that time, there are 3 mechanisms in place to accomplish that repayment: increased tax revenues of properties within the district, impact fee credits for the developer's own property, and impact fees from other properties that do develop. What happens if the economy falters again and development slows or stops altogether? The revenue streams from these 3 sources dries up, But once the 10 years passes away, any monies the city still owes but has not yet been able to pay back because of a slowdown would still have to be paid by the developer. The developer would essentially have to write those costs off. So in reality, the developer is at greater risk and bears a much higher burden for making this plan work and keeping the construction costs of the interchange down, which is why it is important to get this agreement approved now. The sooner construction begins, the better for all parties. Costs always seem to go up, so acting now assures lower costs to build, which means the city's share is going to be lower. The sooner the interchange is completed and accepted by the Expressway Authority, the sooner residential and commercial development can begin, resulting in the revenue streams and increases that the city will use to pay back their share of the cost. In short, this interchange is a win-win for all concerned. Rapid and significant population growth is just around the corner. By acting boldly now, you, the council, in approving this agreement, will signify that you are ready and able to act in a visionary way, recognizing the challenges as they come and crafting innovative solutions to deal with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
We have one more.
One more speaker, Carmen?
Stephen Ruoff.
Steve Ruoff.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Ruoff. I'm a senior advisor with Ruoff & Associates. We do market research and feasibility studies, and I'm a land broker. I've been working in this corridor now for about a year and a half. There are about a dozen property owners that are in your small area study, all of whom are going to be dramatically impacted by this new interchange, including the hospital. I would reference a couple of examples of the impact of an interchange on the growth in areas. One is just south of Disney at 532. For many years, it was a one-way interchange just going south towards Tampa and didn't provide any access to the Orlando market. There was a large grove on the east side of the property and actually on both sides of the property. The Hydrick property, which was a large orange grove, was on the verge of bankruptcy during a slow period back in the 90s. And when they finally got the interchange 4-lane as opposed to 2 lanes, which you're putting in going back to Maitland, the property was purchased by Bobby Ginn and developed into Reunion, and the other side of the road was developed into Champions Gate. Now, the rest of the story is history. All you have to do is look at what the tax rolls for Polk and Osceola County look like today as a result of those two developments. The other example I would give you is the new interchange on the Turnpike, which is going to be the first interchange in Lake County at the extension of Hancock Road. A similar taxing district was set up by the city of Mineola to reimburse the Turnpike Authority for a portion of those, for 50% of the cost of building that Turnpike interchange, which is a little less than $30 million. And one of the property owners whose property that interchange is in is picking up about a $5 million cost for an extension of Hancock Road to 561A. The net result of that access will provide an opportunity to develop not only residential but commercial growth for the city of Mineola, which in the long run expects to move their city facilities to that interchange. So it's going to dramatically impact the values in the city of Mineola by factors that I couldn't begin to express. So what I would suggest to you is that this ramp is going to provide an incredible economic opportunity to that small area study. And without it, the growth could take 10 to 20 years longer simply because of the limited access. So as far as taxes are concerned, I think that it's going to be a boon to the area, and 10 years from now you're going to look back and probably see this as one of the wiser moves you've made.
Thank you, Steve. All right, those are all the speaker cards. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? I see Rod Love first, and then over here.
Rod Love, 15 DeSalvo Place, Apopka, Florida. Afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor. I won't rehash a lot of what you've already heard in my comments of support, but I will just point out the impact to the city with this interchange. I think this impact to the city and its residents would be very impacting as it relates to a delayed effect. I heard earlier a comment about the East-West Authority being involved in this process. When you look at processes such as that with government entities, we could actually be looking at a study that would actually take us 3 years versus breaking ground on the development in terms of how impacting from a commerce standpoint it could be to the city. When I look at the fact that we have a new Florida hospital being built and also with the proposed downtown development that's taking place, this is really adding to the progress of the city of Apopka. And to just really take a note from Mr. Welch as well as Pastor King as it relates to property values in that particular area as it relates to the tax. I mean, I believe that we all aspire that the property that we own would increase in value, but with that increase in value, we'd also have to realize that we're going to have to pay a little bit more with those values increasing. But it's unique to that specific area. So those developers or those landowners, that's an expectation that I believe that they understand. You know, one of the things that Pastor King talked about is the impact to the, and I don't want to say South Apopka, I want to reference it as south of Apopka, the impact to those residents there. You've had myself, you've had other residents come before the city council and advocate for resources for that side of town. Well, the one thing that we do realize is the fact that the city resources, and to be a good steward of those city resources, we're not going to be able to look upon government to totally change and give the south side a facelift. Yeah, while we continue to have that expectation of the contribution, privatization is going to have to come in and also impact that community with jobs, development. So with that being said, and we've tried to change our vernacular as it relates to referencing South Apopka as a city unto itself. It's south of Apopka, which falls underneath the hub of the city of Apopka. And I just want to voice my support for this interchange because I believe truly that rather than having a delayed impact on something that we can actually have take place sometime in the next year or so versus looking at study after study, utilizing taxpayer resources with studies before we even break ground that could actually directly impact that community versus coming, and believe me, we'll continue to come before City Council to seek your support of development, not just for the south of Apopka, but for the entire Apopka. But we don't want to leave any part of the community behind. So with that being said, I wanted to just echo my strong support for this project as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Mr. Hall, I saw Mr. Hall and then Dr. Shackford.
Good afternoon, Sylvester Hall, 3091 Rolling Hills Lane. As a citizen, I'm kind of confused. I don't debate the fact that the exchange is needed. Everybody can see the exchange is needed. And so, for all the heartfelt reasoning for building the exchange, I agree with that 100%. But my focal point is, are we doing it the right way? Are we doing it the best way with the best mindset of the citizens of the city of Apopka? There is no doubt it's needed, but are we going about it the right way? I would love to see all the figures, and just like any businessman, I would love to see all the figures for future gains on what we're investing in. And I know those figures are there. And so it would be good for the public to see those figures. Now, what I'm dumbfounded about, we have the Florida hospital being built, and at that time I'm saying nobody thought exchange would be needed. So this is what I'm talking about, being wise and doing all the studies and making sure we move forward in the best interest of all people. Because I find it hard to believe, building a hospital there, that nobody thought we needed an exchange. Nobody looked into it at that time. Now we have a developer that come forward, and I have nothing against the developer, and I think he's presented a good product. But my thing is, as the leaders of the community, are we getting the best bang for our buck? Or is this the best solution? Could somebody else do it cheaper? We don't know because we didn't take the time to explore all that and venture in all that. And as a citizen, you always hear me, the only thing I expect from my leaders, you was picked to lead us. You was picked to guide us. And if we don't know the information, I expect us to go out and seek out the information and make sure we move forward. So I trust you with everything that you have heard here today. Every speaker that have come up and spoke, you take everybody's word and accountability and move forward in the best interest of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Dr. Shackelford.
Ray Shackelford, 2082 Carpethanian Drive. As a former city commissioner, I love tax increment districts. So every opportunity we have to create one, we need to do so. Therefore, I support this interchange that is being proposed. I do caution us to revisit the numbers in the agreement. For an example, it is my understanding, according to the budget, it's going to cost $6.1 million. It's also my understanding that the city, after the construction of the interchange, the city shall pay 42.735% of the total cost, not to exceed $2.5 million. Where if you take 42.735% of $6.1 million, you will come up to $2.61 million. So we need to look at the figures. That's all I ask you to do. Revisit the figures in the agreement. Otherwise, I support the interchange because I support tax increment districts. I think they're good for economic growth. I think they're good for job creation. And also, if we use the tax increment fund correctly, we can build a fire station out of those funds. So keep that in mind as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shackelford. Anyone else? 1 minute, Tony.
Tony MacArthur, 548 Hill End Court, Apopka. I'm not opposed to the interchange. Let's reiterate. The problems I had is these last two gentlemen is the payment structure for this interchange. And I don't think we need to enter into an agreement that for many years to come, and no one with the city has disputed this with me, or no commissioner has disputed, that we, the other taxpayers of Apopka, are going to provide full services to this synthetic tax district at a cost that exceeds the incremental increase in revenue that we're going to have for that district. And it's unnecessary and wrong. So my proposal is this agreement be modified such that at most there's a 10 to 15% rebate and extend it to a 20 or 30-year period instead of a 10-year period, so that starting from year one, we are not providing services at a loss to this area. And number two, again, I think like these other gentlemen are trying to point out, there's other stakeholders that help pay for this, and I think it's putting the cart before the horse for us to take on all the costs, and before we've officially asked Florida Hospital and the Expressway Authority to pay for this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. All right. Anyone else from the public? All right. We're going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. And the chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance. Make sure I'm on the right one. 2446 on third reading for adoption. So moved. Motion by Commissioner Ruth.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Velasquez. Any further discussion by the council?
I guess we're going to discussion on the total between the two of them, really. I mean, or do you want to wait till we get to the agreement, or how do you want to?
Well, the ordinance is kind of the enabling resolution. Right. The agreement is the agreement.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion by the council?
No.
Discussion by the public? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move to ordinance 2444. Would you please read the title?
I think the next is Resolution 2015-16.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got down to the wrong place. I'm sorry. Resolution 2015-16, budget amendment. Is there's a title?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Resolution 2015-16, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2014, and ending September 30th, 2015, providing for a budget amendment.
All right. Pam or Glenn, is there a lead-in?
This is something that we established several months ago as far as doing these budget revisions or amendments on a quarterly basis. Pam will answer any questions that the council has.
Does the council have any questions for Pam Barclay? These are mostly just nominal. Pam, can you come to the podium, please? These are mostly just nominal budget amendments, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything here that is notable that we should call attention to?
No.
Okay. All right. Does the council have any questions?
This is from last year's,
It's current year.
it's current
budget.
year?
Yes.
It said year beginning 2/14 to September 30th, 2000. So these amendments affect
The current year that we are in, the
Okay.
current budget, not next year's
not
budget.
next year's
Correct.
budget.
I'm trying to make my iPad move.
Okay.
All right. If there are no other questions from the council, the chair would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2015-16.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Velasquez. Second by Commissioner Ruth. Any further discussion by the council? Discussion by the public? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Now we're down to quasi-judicial ordinances and site approvals. Ordinance 2443. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2443, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing the future land use designation from county low-density residential 0 to 4 dwelling units per acre to city residential low 0 to 5 dwelling units per acre for certain real property generally located south of East 6th Street, west of Orange Blossom Trail, comprising 3.6 acres more or less, and owned by VSI Custom Homes, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Okay, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Are the affected parties in the room? All right. We will move forward with we're going to open Ordinance 2443 for a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on Ordinance 2443? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the council. The chair would entertain a motion to approve Ordinance 2443 on second reading.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ruth.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Velasquez. Any further discussion by the council? Discussion by the public? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance 2444. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2444, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from county R2 ZIP residential to city planned unit development, PUD R2 downtown development overlay district for certain real property generally located south of East 6th Street, west of Orange Blossom Trail, comprising 3.6 acres more or less, and owned by VSI Custom Homes, providing for directions to the Community Development Director, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
All right, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Are the affected parties in the room? If not, we'll open Ordinance 2444 for a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on Ordinance 2444? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. The chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2444 on second reading.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Aerosmith, second by Commissioner Velasquez.
Okay, yes, second.
All right. Any further discussion by the council? Discussion by the public? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance 2447. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2447, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from I-1 to Plan Unit Development, PUD I-1, for certain real property generally located north of Marshall Lake Road, west of South Bradshaw Road, and south of CSX Railroad line, comprising 35.59 acres, more or less, and owned by Property Industrial Enterprises, LLC, providing for directions to the Community Development Director, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, are the affected parties in the room? Mr. Cooper, would you stand and be sworn?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay. Is there a lead-in on this?
This is the second reading presentation. The last reading is no additional comments from staff.
Okay, great. We're going to open up ordinance 2447 for a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on ordinance 2447? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. The chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2447 on second reading.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Dean, second by Commissioner Velasquez. Any further discussion by the council? Discussion by the public? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance 2448. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2448, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from County A1 ZIP to City I1 restricted 0.6 FAR for certain real property generally located north of West Keene Road, south of State Road 414, comprising 50.77 acres, more or less, and owned by D. Arthur Yerke Trust, providing for directions to the Community Development Director, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Are the affected parties in the room? Would you stand and be sworn by the clerk, please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, and this is on second reading, so no further comments by the staff. David, right? So we'll open it up for a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on ordinance 2448? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. The chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2448 on second reading. Motion by Commissioner Aerosmith, second by Commissioner Ruth. Any further discussion by the council?
No.
Discussion by the public? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance 2449, first reading. Would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2449, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, Third Amendment to the adopted Mullinax Ford Plan Unit Development, PUD, Master Plan for certain real property generally located north of State Road 436, a.k.a. Cimarron Boulevard, and east of Rogers Williams Road, comprising 21.51 acres, more or less, owned by Mullinax Ford of Central Florida Incorporated, providing for directions to the Community Development Director, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Are the affected parties in the room? Would you stand and be sworn by the clerk, please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, David, is there a lead-in?
Yes, Mayor. The request before City Council is to approve the amendment of an existing Plan Unit Development zoning ordinance for an automobile dealership located on the north side of...
Let's get to the right slide.
Located on the north side of Cimarron Boulevard. The uses involve the sale of existing and used vehicles as well as the maintenance of vehicles at the site. The applicant is requesting to amend the PUD ordinance. Slide shows the proposed location on the north side of Cimarron, on the east side of Apopka. The applicant, Mullinax Ford, is requesting to construct a truck display mountain, a new service building, paved employee parking spaces, and a vehicle inventory storage area on the site appearing on the map. The character of the area is commercial to the south, east, and west, with residential to the north and unincorporated Orange County lands. The property size is 21.51 acres. On the screen now is the proposed development plan. At the center of the map, you'll see the plan. You'll see where the mountain is located. On the north side is where the new parking lot is located. I apologize, my pointer was borrowed and walked off. So I
beg your pardon?
said my pointer was borrowed and walked off, so
Uh-oh.
I can't show you where these activities are on the screen.
Who has the pointer?
Okay.
Who's the last one to use it? Susan. Sue, do you still have the pointer?
He got it. He's gone.
He's gone. Okay.
On the north side of the Molinex Ford site is the location of 229 proposed paid parking spaces for the vehicle inventory storage. Well, that's not it, but a new employee parking lot is proposed at the middle of the site that will contain 96 parking spaces and 2 parking spaces for semi-trucks here, and a future expansion of the employee parking area to 42 spaces. The center of the proposed amendments is a 23-foot high, 200-foot long truck display mountain that will hold 8 to 10 trucks. That display mountain will not be accessible to the public. It'll be fenced and naturally landscaped. With the expansion of the inventory parking area, a brick wall will be constructed adjacent to existing residential zone or residential neighborhoods. Additional conditions are established in the ordinance also to take into consideration the presence of existing residential neighborhoods. Light poles have to be at least 30 feet away from that property line, and other criteria are in there to protect the residential homes, including the brick wall. On August the 25th, the Planning Commission held a hearing and recommended to approve the amendment to the Planned Unit Development Ordinance, and the Development Review Committee has the same recommendation. I'll address any questions that the City Council may have.
Any questions by the council?
Yeah. David, the wall in the back of Molinex where you're saying they're constructing, no, to your right, yeah. Do you know what street that is behind and what residential street that is?
Otter Lane.
Otter Lane. Okay. And the light from, there's going to be lighting behind the wall.
In the area that is used, this is a retention pond directly on the south of the residential homes with an existing brick wall here. This is existing facilities and buildings presently on the site. So this area of Molinex will not be...
lighted?
Will not be affected. Whatever lighting that occurs is what's there now.
Oh, it's too
Okay?
bad.
The center of the site and the north central area are what will be enhanced as part of the amendment to the PUD and the master plan.
The only reason why I was asking is because the residents on that street, because that's Ulysses, is that Ulysses?
No, that's further to the east.
Is that further?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I've had a couple of residents, they're looking for lighting. So I thought if they can get it from Molinex, that would be good.
They want more lighting. They want more lighting.
Right, no,
Not
but
less.
if they can get
Okay.
the lighting, I mean, that would be good. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
That
Any other
was it.
questions by the council?
No, that was it. Thought I can get free lighting.
Okay. Would the petitioner like to make any
Yeah.
any statement? You're not obligated to. I'm just offering the opportunity. Okay. Is there anyone, we're going to open it up for a public hearing on ordinance 2449. Would anyone like to speak on ordinance 2449? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. The chair would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2449 on first reading. So moved. Motion by Commissioner Aerosmith, second by Commissioner Ruth. My only question is, are we going to call this Mount McKinley or Mount Denali? Mount Molinax. Okay. All right. Mount Molinax. All right.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by the council? Comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are going to move to the revised final development plan for the Northwest Distribution Facility Building C. Is there a lead-in? Jay, or I'm sorry, David.
The property owner is Oakmont Apopka Road LLC. The applicant is Oakmont Industrial Group. The engineer is Highland Engineering. The proposal is to amend an existing final development plan to include an industrial building on Lot 3 of the Northwest Distribution Center plat. As part of that previous plat and subdivisions, there are previous approvals that were made by City Council that apply to this property. The Northwest Distribution Center is located on the west side of State Road 451, east of Apopka Road. It's a 5-lot industrial plat zoned I-1. The center, lots 2 and 3 are developed. Lot 1 on the north is proposed for the new 149,000 square foot industrial plant here. And then there's 2 vacant lots on the south, 4 and 5, that can provide for additional industrial development. The new building, as you see here, will contain 149,000 square feet, of which 5,000 will be office, 144,000 will be warehousing. The building is 40 feet high. It's allowed to go as high as 50 feet based on approvals granted with the subdivision plan. It will provide employment for 90 employees. There are 150 parking spaces that are proposed to accommodate the employees, as well as for truck parking. Landscaping plan has been submitted with this and found acceptable by the staff. There are 4 different types of trees and 23 different types of plants. The Planning Commission met and addressed the site plan as well as 4 waiver requests, and they approved each. They recommended to approve the final development plan as well as the 4 waivers. Architectural renderings are included as part of the package. It's a typical industrial warehousing building. Staff felt that it met the intent of the development design guidelines. The 4 waivers, I won't get into detail as they were recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. The first addresses a reduction in the number of parking spaces from the required 300 to 150 based on the needs and demands of that warehousing activity. They'll only have 90 employees, and the building is designed for that warehousing use, with office only comprising 5,000 of the total 149,000. Waiver 1 and 2 addressed landscaping and irrigation. And the 4th waiver addresses the type of bubbler system that is used to irrigate trees on the property. So they will be irrigated. It's just a different type of system that will be used in what is typically required in the Land Development Code. Again, the Planning Commission held its hearing, recommended approval of the final development plan and the 4 waivers, as did the Development Review Committee. I'll address any questions that you may have.
Any questions of David?
No, I had to look up the word bubblers, and I realized what it was. I didn't know what it was.
Look up the word what?
I had to look up bubblers.
Bubblers?
Yeah. What? Because I said, what are bubblers? Install what are they pronounced?
Water
What are they
fountain.
pronounced?
Bubblers. Bubblers, like a water fountain?
It's basically a hose that's underground that trickles water into
I looked it
into
up.
the roots.
Doesn't spray, it bubbles.
I thought a bubbler was a water fountain. There you go.
Okay.
Just depends on what part of the country you're from. All right. If there are no other questions by David, is the applicant in the room? Okay. Cliff, do we swear in the engineer, or do we, if he's here on behalf of the applicant?
Anybody who's going to give testimony, yes.
Okay. All right. Would you please be sworn by the clerk? All right. Would you care to make any presentation?
Just not available for any questions you have.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions by the council of the applicant? Hearing none, we'll open this up for public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to speak on the final revised final development plan for the Northwest Distribution Facility, Building C? Hearing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. I would just say, as somebody who drove past this project for months and months and months and wondered what was going on down there, to see the activity up there now is just really thrilling, and to see that they're coming back with a new building because they're full up is just tremendously exciting. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve the revised final development plan for the Northwest Distribution Facility, Building C.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Velasquez.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dean. Any further discussion by the council? Discussion by the public? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're going to go down to department reports, bids, and proposed agreements. Glenn, do you have a lead-in on the interchange agreement?
I certainly do, Juan. Okay, this is finally the agreement we've been talking about for several weeks. It is for the Martin Road interchange, and if accepted, it will enter the city into an agreement with MMI Homes to cost share to build the actual interchange that we've been talking about. It is anticipated that the total cost of the interchange will be roughly $6.5 million. The agreement is set up whereby the city would share in that cost up to 90%, or a total of $5.85 million. The way that would be paid out over time would be that when the interchange is complete, cars are actually going up and down the ramps. The city would wire into MMI Development's bank account the total sum of $2.5 million. The balance of the up to $5.85 million would be paid as follows. Road impact fees collected within the small area study, all road impact fees collected would be paid to MMI towards that total cap. Any impact fees that they would pay for Martin Road or Martin Ridge development would be actually credited. In other words, they would not write a check to the city and the city turn around and write a check back to them. They would just receive credits, but the credits would be applied towards the amount that the city owes or has a cost share towards the interchange. Furthermore, property tax incremental increases would be paid to MMI Development at 50% of what we bring in, only on that incremental tax increase. Furthermore, if the Expressway Authority decided to put a toll gantry or allow the city to install a toll gantry, or one just appeared one day, and revenues started to be generated from that gantry, and it were given to the city, we would bequeath to MMI Development a total of 25% of that. All of this is set to sunset within 10 years. This has been brought up recently. If we reach the end of 10 years and the only thing that the city's paid out is the $2.5 million, the city is out of the agreement and it is considered paid in full. The tax incremental financing district that's been set with the ordinance a few minutes ago would also sunset at the end of 10 years. And that's about it.
Okay. Any questions by the council? Commissioner Aerosmith.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that we did table this at the last meeting, gave us more time to study it, and look into it, and I do appreciate that. I was all for it in the beginning, and I did have questions. So
Yes.
appreciate the extra time. I've had a chance to talk to different constituents, and also, probably as all of us, we've had the opportunity to have an additional meeting with a developer here at City Hall on an individual basis, and be able to go over some of the pluses and minuses of the deal. It's very apparent that the area does need this interchange to succeed in the future. I've always been pro-business, and I still am today. The agreement, as is spelled out, I do have some concerns about that, and I have spoken with the developer about it, and the heartburn that I had over this agreement is us writing a check for $2.5 million as soon as the interchange was finished, and that basically amounts to about 40% of our total impact fee fund. And I want to do this, but I want to figure out a way to do it. So I suggested that we spread this out over a 5-year period as far as our contribution, and that we guarantee them $500,000 a year, and that would be including the impact fees that we get during that time for that $500,000 each year to get up to the $2.5 million. And I think that way it doesn't stress our impact fee fund as heavy as it would, obviously, to writing a check out. We do have other things in the city we need to be concerned with, and that'll give us the opportunity to use our money for that. I do feel confident that, obviously the biggest thing is the hospital going in that area. I think that it is going to grow. Commercial properties down there is going to draw, and from a tax base, I mean, it's going to be a big plus. I mean, as someone mentioned earlier, probably may have been the developer, but bringing in commercial tax dollars is real important, especially to the residents. I know a couple different properties that I have checked on that people complained about a dollar store and an auto parts store, and 2 properties they were paying $3,500 in taxes before they were built, and now that they're built in operation, we're getting about $32,000 in taxes from those same 2 properties. So it's just kind of an indication of where things can go with the more commercial development that we have. I had posed the question last time, if this is such a good deal, why doesn't the city go ahead and do it ourselves? Obviously, we have other fish to fry, and that is a big undertaking. And the other side of that coin is, anytime you add government to a project, you might as well figure another 40% of cost. When a developer is doing this, they are for profit, and we should look at it in the same vein. But unfortunately, anytime we put something out for bid, it's going to increase at least 40 or 50%. So the fact that they are building it in today's economy and paying for it, I think this is a big plus to get that whole area going down there. The one thing I would like to see us do, I've never really liked the idea of half anything, but a half interchange is going in there, and they're starting now. I think what we should do is, as a city, we should formally start the process right now with the Expressway Authority and ask for funding to get the other half of an interchange done there so that we can have a complete interchange. I understand the logistical part of it at the moment, but if the growth goes in there as anticipated, we will need a full interchange. So let's start that right now so that we can't say 2 years from now we should have started back then.
I'm not sure the geometry is going to...
Well, and I don't know about the
accommodate
geometry either. I mean, I was looking at that from, I was hoping there was enough with the, but even if it has to cross the other side of Martin Road, or there has to be something, I'm not sure of that either. But I'm just saying, if there's an opportunity to do that, or, I mean, I know they've spent a lot of money in engineering, but if the engineering has to be possibly reconfigured to allow for that in the future, it'd be to their advantage as much as ours, if they backed up their entrances on either way to allow for that. But that's just a thought that I have. If we can do it, I think it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and plan for that. But I think that probably is all the comments that I had, but, and it's my understanding this agreement, we can amend that as I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
You said if you get to the...
Right. Is the attorney shaking his head up and down also? Okay.
Okay. Any other comments by the council?
I would. The original contract that we wrote up is $2.5 million, and it's a one-time payout when the interchange is complete, and once the Central Florida Expressway has cars passing through it. At $500,000 a year for 5 years, it still comes up to 2.5.
Correct.
And even if we're paying him $500,000 a year, we still have to put $2.5 million on the side that we can't touch. So, what's the difference? It just, we're not paying $500,000 a year and not keeping the money on the side. Either way, we still have $2.5 million for him. So the way the contract was written, I feel that it benefits the residents and the city of Apopka to give the developer his one-time contribution, cost sharing, I should say, when the interchange is finished.
Okay.
When it's complete. I agree with the contract as it was originally written.
Okay. Commissioner Dean? You look like you were going to weigh in. So.
Well, I have a question. I'm for the interchange, but I find that no one has said anything about improving, getting to the interchange from 441 down to Central, then Michael Gladden. Turn on Michael Gladden, and then run into Apopka Corridor Road. Nobody has said anything about the improvement of that road.
Well, I do think there is within the city's capital improvement plan, transportation improvement plan, there is an improvement to Martin Road that's envisioned, right, Jay? Improvement to Martin Road is envisioned, and then there is also the potential for something called the Harmon Road extension, which would extend from where Harmon Road dead ends at Apopka Road over to Martin Road. So I think to answer your specific question about increased access in the area, there are at least two projects that I think will address that.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned about.
Okay. All right.
I don't see, well, maybe I can't see, any improvement from Central back to the project that we're talking about, the interchange.
Okay. Well, that's a good discussion, but I think we're focused right now on the agreement and the details of the agreement. But I do think you're absolutely right that the access in this whole area has to be adjusted or addressed at some future point. And I think that is a good discussion for another point after we get past this, the details of the agreement.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I may be incorrect there, you know more than I do, but I'm not normally agenda items open to the public to speak on before council, and I didn't hear you ask if there was anyone from the public that would like to speak on.
We're going to get there, Tony. Tony, the council is entitled to have a discussion.
I didn't disagree with that. I was wondering about the order.
Okay, the council is entitled to have a discussion. Everybody knows, I open things up for public discussion before we take any kind of vote.
Thank you.
Anything? Commissioner Ruth?
Oh,
all right. To address Commissioner Aerosmith's concern, I don't have any personal philosophical objection. I wonder if it's good business. I mean, if we whether it's a one-time payment or a five-time payment of $500,000 a year, doesn't that increase basically we're ending in a cost-sharing agreement with Mr. Wright, who kind of becomes our partner, right? So doesn't this increase our cost to our partner? unnecessarily.
No, it increases the partner's cost, doesn't increase our cost.
Right.
And he's agreed to it.
All right.
I mean, it's to me, you have the value of having that money there. Hopefully, our transportation impact fees are going to grow over the next 5 years. So it's not going to be a $2.5 million hit to us in the next year, and we're able to spread it out. We're able to take the same, basically, risk that he is. It just makes sense, I think, to do it that way. And like I say, it includes be inclusive of what impacts we have coming in during that time. But if
first of all, the transportation impact fee is not a static fund. We have funds coming into the transportation impact fund from many different sources as new developments come in. So it is clearly an expense to the transportation impact fund. My kind of philosophical basis for this is, rather than just have money sit in the bank and not be put to work, let's put this money to work, and let's put it to work in the most efficient manner possible, which is, pay our partner the money that we say we're going to pay him in the most timely fashion, so he can, so he doesn't have to pay interest on that money.
I don't know. I like money sitting in the bank. I like reserves. No pun intended.
I think you have a philosophical, but this is so. I have this debate with my wife all the time about paying the credit card bill, right? So the credit card bill comes in every month, and it's more than I want to pay, and I tell her, just pay the minimum amount. Where she's been able to convince me that paying off the whole amount every month costs us less money in the long run than it does to pay it off over time. Now, I get why the bank would want me to pay it off over time. That's clearly that's a good business for the bank. But for our partner here, I would prefer to make the most efficient use of money and pay it off. We clearly have the money in reserves. It's not a static fund. It will not affect the credit rating of the city in any fashion. I say let's just make the payment and move
Philosophically,
on.
I'm just against spending 40% of our impact fee as it is today on one project, depending on things to happen over the next 5 years like we're projecting. But I'm not, like I say, as all of you have obviously met with a developer, I met with them and they were in agreement to do that, and if they're in agreement to do that, then I can't really equate it to
Mr. Wright, would you care to weigh in at this point, or Angel?
my wife's credit card.
Okay.
Doesn't get that high, but
Angel de la Portilla, 121 South Orange Avenue. I'm the developer's representative. Full transparency, we did have a meeting with Commissioner Aerosmith on Friday, and after our meeting, we ran some numbers, and the proposal that Commissioner Aerosmith is proposing would cost an extra $200,000 in interest in the project, assuming at a 4% loan that we're going to get. We're going to borrow, MMI will get a loan, and we'll repay the loan. We were hoping to make that first payment with the $2.5 million from the city's investment. But I also pointed out something else to Commissioner Aerosmith that hasn't really been discussed. Because I've seen this happen in other counties where I work. I work as a government consulting on a number of projects. If, for example, there's a downturn in the economy and the city decides to put a moratorium on impact fees to stimulate the economy, Osceola County did that in 2010, and the moratorium lasted till January of this year. It's a 5-year moratorium. What happens is that your road project budget, your road impact fee budget could be drained from other needs. There's other projects, as you have mentioned, and all that. So if the money is sitting in the account, and I don't know how much interest the city is earning on that money, we'd like to get the payment after the interchange is in operation, and it'll lower our interest expense, and it'll also reduce the risk in the event that there is a downturn and where impact fees are not, what if impact fees are not there 1 year? in the 5-year that Commissioner Aerosmith is proposing. So therefore, we prefer the lump sum payment at the end of 1 year, Mayor.
All right. Any other comments by the council before I open it up for public discussion?
No.
All right, at this point, we're open it for public discussion. And Mr. MacArthur, you have the podium. And this time, Tony, 4 minutes.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, thank you. With regard to this agreement, I would recommend some amendments. First, if it could be amended such that if the city were to approach the Expressway Authority and get approval for the Expressway Authority to contribute to the cost of this half interchange, that be allowable under the agreement and be counted towards the maximum liability the city has for reimbursing the developer. I think that's reasonable and no risk to the city and no risk to the developer.
Mr. Irby addressed that. If the Expressway Authority, by the way, we have approached the Expressway Authority, and if the Expressway Authority were to change its mind and put a toll gantry there, yes.
I'm not talking about a toll, sorry. I'm talking about if they were to agree to just a cash payment, a non-toll payment, a cash payment.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't know that that's clear and specified in the agreement. I don't know that it's disallowed, but I'd like it to be specific.
It doesn't need to be because the Expressway Part Authority is not going to pay the developer twice for one improvement. Not going to happen. It would only be happening if the developer was going to accept as a credit in full towards the dollar for dollar value. It just doesn't work that they pay double. It doesn't happen.
Okay. If, the other thing is, if at some point in the future Florida Hospital were to think that they could somehow contribute to the cost of this half interchange, that be allowable under the agreement, and that the monies that Florida Hospital chose to contribute would be allowed to count towards the maximum liability that the city has. The next modification I suggest making is that no one at this point, and I brought this up twice now, this will be the third time, no one has disputed the fact that for years to come, we're going to be providing service to the synthetic tax district at a loss. We're not going to taking in enough revenue because we're giving so much of the incremental tax increase back to the developer. So I suggest that that's not acceptable and not a good business partnership, and that the agreement be amended to have a 10 to 20% rebate over a 20 to 30-year period, and that analysis be done so that from day one, we're not providing services to the new apartment complex that goes up, to the new Target that goes up, et cetera, at a loss to the city of Apopka. I think that's a reasonable suggestion, and still ensure that the developer gets paid just over a slower period of time. I think that's reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Any other member of the public would like to address this agreement? Okay, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. And the chair would entertain a motion.
Just for the record, I'd like to ask one thing.
Sure.
From the developer standpoint, I just want to make it clear, and I assumed, am I the only person you met with regarding this past week?
Last week we met with Commissioner Velasquez. Commissioner Dean did not meet with us. We had a meeting scheduled. He had to cancel, and Commissioner Ruth was also tied up in a...
Did you meet with them after you met with me?
No.
Did you talk to anybody after me?
No.
No commissioner or the mayor, anything about what we talked about?
No.
Okay.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agreement to authorize the mayor to execute the Martin Road interchange agreement to share in the cost of constructing the half interchange from 414 that would connect with Martin Road.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ruth.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Velasquez. Any further discussion by the council?
I'm going to vote against it just on a philosophical basis. I mean, I'm all in favor of the interchange. I'm pro-business, everything there is, but it just seems a shame to me that we would take this approach.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
No.
Further discussion from the public? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you very much.
Can I humbly beg for a 1 minute?
All right. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. Order. And the next item in the council's packet, it's not an item requiring council action, but it's a very nice email from Piedmont Lakes resident Tommy Harrison regarding the professionalism and the courtesy offered to them by our members of our water department. I just wanted the council to take note of that. We're going to come down to the mayor's report, and I've got a couple of things, in fact, a number of things that I'd like to discuss with everyone here today. The first is, of course, I'd like to remind everybody of the swearing in of our new police chief, Mike McKinley, which will take place tomorrow at the community center. That is scheduled for 4 p.m., and I hope everyone can attend. We certainly, Captain Fernandez has planned a very nice ceremony for us for tomorrow. So, we also have, I want to let everyone know that we have received a response to our request for proposals for the downtown development. The staff is currently analyzing that response. We have a 30-day window, correct? A 30-day window for the staff to analyze it before we release it to the public. But I think it is going to be something that we're all going to be excited about, and the plan is to hold a workshop meeting on that proposal. We haven't come up with a date for that workshop yet, have we? Okay, all right. So look for that notification here in the near future. We need to talk about our November 4th meeting. The National League of Cities conference is in Nashville, and it begins November 4th, and that's the Wednesday of that week, the first Wednesday of the month in November. And so my question is, do we want to move our city council meeting to November the 3rd, the Tuesday, which would allow those who want to go to the National League of Cities to be able to have a council meeting and then be able to, get to Nashville and attend that conference. So, do we need a vote to change a council meeting, or can we just express kind of the consensus of the council?
The answer is, for safety purposes, you'd always rather have a vote. You could do it by consensus, but if it's truly 5 of 5. But if there's a decision about that move, then you want to go to a vote.
Okay. All right. We don't need to, here's what I'm going to put on the table. Let's vote on this at our next meeting, right? I'm going to put it on the table and certainly let the public at least be aware of it, and we'll schedule this for a formal council vote at our next meeting. Is that acceptable to everybody? Okay.
But at that time, we will let the public know. There's
We'll schedule
by
it.
the city.
We'll schedule it as a council, as on the agenda. And if anybody wants to weigh in on that, they'll have the opportunity to weigh in at that point.
Okay.
Okay?
That sounds good.
All right. Visioning takes place. We have a number of visioning sessions this month, and I saw Bob Cambrick in the room. Sorry? He had to head out. All right. We have a meeting, or a visioning session this Saturday at Alonzo Williams Park. At what time, Robert? 10 to 2. And that's the first, and then we have a number of visioning sessions scheduled for the rest of the month. Yes, sir.
I thought that date rang familiar, but moving that to November the 3rd is Election Day.
There's no election. I mean, that is the second or the first Tuesday of the month, but there's no big election on November the 3rd that I know of.
I was just curious. I just looked at my calendar and I saw it was on Election Day.
That's not the next big election scheduled is March 15th of next year.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a primary.
Correct.
Date.
Yeah, there's no election on that day. We're safe.
The calendar was wrong.
Okay. All right. budget hearings. We have our first budget hearing scheduled for next Wednesday, right, at 7 o'clock, and we'll meet to discuss setting the tentative millage rate, and then our final budget hearing, our required budget hearing, is scheduled for September, the immediately 2 weeks following, whatever that date is, for our final budget hearing. All right, I got one more thing. There has been some discussion in the community in general about the idea of statues for mayor land. And the statues is something that it was discussed kind of at the staff level prior to Mayor Land leaving office. And my understanding of those discussions was that Mayor Land was not, he wasn't particularly fond of the idea, but the staff kind of just went ahead and pursued kind of a plan for statues anyway. And so an artist was commissioned, and that artist came up with a plan for two statues, one of Mayor Land standing and the other Mayor Land sitting on a park bench. And the kind of tentative plan that was at least being floated was the statue of Mayor Land standing would go on the grounds here of City Hall, and the statue of him sitting down on a bench would go at Kitland Nelson Park, maybe near the gazebo. And the plan for the statues, after Mayor Land left office, the plan for the statues was, it was discussed by the board of the John Land Community Trust, but for one reason or another, that plan has not, it's not come forward. And so we are going to come in, I was speaking to Pam earlier this week, we're going to come in at the end of this budget year with a substantial amount of money that we've saved under various initiatives that we've done this year. We've got money in the bank, money in the budget to be able to spend. I've spoken to Richard Anderson, and the cost for two statues, for casting the statues, for paying the artist fees, is about $80,000. And I would like to propose, since we have money left over in the budget for the current fiscal year, that the city allocate $80,000 for the cost of these statues. It's a way, number one, of getting the job done. And it would be, the responsibility would be on us and on no one else. And I think it's a reasonable expenditure for somebody who served the city as long as Mayor Land did. And I think it would be a fitting tribute to Mayor Land. And the other thing that I think is that Apopka needs public art. We need art that is in public places, that is inspirational, and that makes references to history, and is would quite rightly call attention to somebody who had such a major impact on the city. So, I have the proposal that was put forward to the trust with kind of the design and what the cost would be. Richard says that the total cost for the two statues is about $80,000. There would be some additional expense, for example, for a pedestal for City Hall, and maybe to prepare the grounds. It probably wouldn't exceed more than $20,000, but in speaking to Richard earlier this week, he said that that is a cost that he would propose that the trust put forward, and they could either hold a fundraising type initiative that would go around it, or the funds that the trust has could cover that cost. So, again, this is something that I'd like to put on the table as something that we consider. I don't think we necessarily have to vote on it today, but I want to put it on the table for the council's consideration.
Well, I want to express my view right now.
Yes, sir.
I feel that Mayor Land spent the majority of his life here at the City Hall. Mm-hmm. I would like to see his statue here at the City Hall and his family over in Kitland Park. That's my.
So the plan was, the statue of him, here, let me show you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So, will you pass one to Sam? Sure. Will you pass one to Commissioner Velasquez? Okay. All right. And I'm sorry that the public can't see this, but we should probably put it on the packet. Do you have one that you can throw on the screen there? There's a foundry in Sanford that has the capability of casting statues. They've done work for art for communities throughout the state of Florida. And you can see the second page of this is kind of how the statues were developed. The third page is kind of photoshopped examples of what these statues would look like. The statue of Mayor Land, or the statue of him seated, would be near the gazebo. And again, this is just a concept. This is not necessarily... go ahead to the third page, Robert. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen up there, I know, but... the statue of him standing would be, could be in front of the flag at City Hall, or, even on the steps of City Hall. And then you see the cost. Now, these cost estimates were, are more than a year old, and they might have to be updated and revised. But Richard assures me that, $80,000 would cover the cost of 2 statues, and there would be some other nominal cost to actually place the statues on a pedestal, as you see, and in the park.
So we haven't paid any kind of a deposit or nothing's been done.
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking back at least 2 years ago, I was told this had already been commissioned. It was $65,000. We had the money to pay for it, and we'd already commissioned it to the sculptor. And
I know that it turns out I actually know the sculptor. He was Pete Pasha, who's the sculptor, was friends with one of my best friends in college. So I've known him for a long time. And he was commissioned to do the design work. The execution, though, belongs to the foundry. And completing it, I think, is something that if it's going to get done, somebody has to take responsibility for it. And I want to say that we ought to take responsibility for it and get it done.
I agree with you. I just, like I say, I thought it was already commissioned and they were just waiting to finish it and get paid.
Nope.
No.
So.
No, I think we owe it to them, for sure.
I agree.
Just one comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember like my second city council meeting, and they had spoken about the John Land Trust Fund, and I'm all for this. I think he deserves this and probably a little more. But I do remember Dr. Shackelford mentioning that trust fund and saying, when are we going to do the statues for him? So is that money coming from the John Land Trust Fund? And now we're saying we're going to pay for this in addition to?
Here's how I feel about the trust, right?
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay. So the $200,000 that has been the subject of some media reports and some discussion in town, the $200,000 was allocated by the city to the trust on April 16th?
No, that's right, April 16th.
April 16th of 2014. And once that money transferred, it became the property of the trust, right? And the trust is a group of private individuals who all of us know virtually all of the members of the trust. We all know that they're honorable people in town. We all know that they have honorable intentions. I quite honestly think that some of the media reports have been ginned up and I'm told you're never supposed to get into an argument with somebody who buys their ink or their airtime by the barrelful, but I think some of those media reports have been ginned up unfairly, and I think the trust, is feeling a little sensitive to the idea that anything that it does is going to be hyper scrutinized by the media, right? So to take that pressure off of the trust, and in consideration of the fact that the city has the resources, we have the money left over in this current year's fiscal budget, which, by the way, ends at the end of this month. We have plenty of money left over in our current year's fiscal budget. Let's just do it. Let's just get the statues done, make a commitment, put the statues up, because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to honor somebody who served the city so admirably for so long. So, and if the media wants to ask, is this the right thing to do? I'll be happy to stand up in front of every TV camera and say, yes, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a motion,
Well, I also don't want to, I've been criticized for bringing things up here at the last minute and not giving the public time to vote, to weigh in on this stuff. So I'm amenable to holding this discussion over until the next council meeting so that the city...
I agree with you. But I mean, to keep making statements, we have plenty of money and let's go ahead and do this and do that. And, I think I'm saying light, I'm not trying to get off the subject, but if we have plenty of money, we need to start rebuilding our reserves that we spent last year. But
we're going to do that too.
So I think this is a great move that should have been done. And as I say, there again, I'm thinking it was already commissioned and we're just waiting for it to get here. And I had a cost of $65,000 in mind. But yeah, I think some fundraising opportunities will probably be out there, and we're
okay. Well, is it the will of the council to take a vote today? I'm willing to do that.
To kind of avoid any backlash from the public, I believe that...
We'll schedule for a vote next week? For next time? Okay. All right. Is that good? Is that acceptable? Yes. All right. We'll schedule that for the agenda for our next council meeting. All right?
We will not avoid backlash. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Listen, that's what you sign up for in this job, right?
Yep.
All right. I've now misplaced my agenda.
Old business.
Here we go. We're down to old business council. Is there any old business council? Old business public. Dr. Shackelford.
Oh, there it is.
Ray Shackelford, 2082 Carpathian Drive. We all know that Mayor Land was a people's person, so I hope in the consideration of a statue for him that we will have him surrounded at least by some children. Just consideration. During the past year, the public had access to a disbursement report, and the City Council approved the report on the consent agenda. What happened to that public access and approval of the City Council?
It was actually missed on the last agenda. It'll be doubled up on the next agenda.
The last two agendas? Because there's nothing...
The last agenda is where it should have been for the previous month. So there will be two on the next agenda.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because I think that's a great thing for the public to have access to look at the report and for the council to approve the disbursement report. Okay. My only concern, again, is that the council is approving accounts payables after the fact. And I know there's a threshold of $25,000 that, that the city council must approve, anything over $25,000. Just keep that in mind, please. The second observation, I looked over the Old Florida Festival report again, and I noticed that there were no staff expenditures. So for information purposes only, I just wanted to know, were there overtime costs for staff? And if so, should that cost be added to the deficit?
Yeah.
To my knowledge, there was no overtime paid. The staff was either flexed out afterwards or on-duty personnel were used. The police department's got some way of keeping people on duty out there at the same time or flexing out. We all did the same thing.
Thank you for the information. You have clarified my misunderstanding, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shackford. We're down to, is there any other old business public? Sorry, Dale. And you have how many speaker cards?
I actually have an old business and a new one, apparently, it turns out. Dale Fenwick, 1272 Errol Parkway. The new budget, will there be a revised budget document available before the next meeting so the public can review all the changes?
Yes,
on the website, I guess? And news to me that we're at least $100,000 under budget for this particular year. So I'm wondering, when is a reconciliation of the current year budget versus current year actual would be available to kind of see just how much under budget we really are? Because all I remember is that we dipped into reserves for this and we dipped into reserves for that.
An audit won't be available until well after the new calendar year. That's
I don't know. I wasn't asking about it. I figured it could be an audit eventually, but I was actually looking for not an audit, but your all's comparison between this was the budget that was approved last year, this is what we actually spent line item by line item, so we can see where this 100,000 plus budget surplus, may have come from.
No time frame.
Thanks.
All right. Any other old business public? Tony. And then Sue. I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Suzanne Kidd, 1260 Lexington Parkway. Mayor, you kind of scooped what I was going to say, just reminding everybody about the visioning. But I wanted to particularly mention that if anyone has received one of these green postcards in the mail, you are part of the statistically significant survey part that Keith and Schnars, the visioning consultant, is going to use for determining some of the information about the city and what people want. Yes, the survey at visioningapopka.net is still important for everybody to take, but for the maybe 9,000 people, I think that's how many they sent these out. It's really important if you received one of these, or if you could mention it to your friends. If you received one, please take the time to go on, I believe it's Survey Monkey is where the actual survey is occurring, and take that survey because that's going to be really important for the statistics.
You can access that through visioningapopka.net.
Oh, I think so, yes. But for the people who received one, there'll be a four-digit code that you have to enter, and that's different from what just anybody just coming to the website who has not received one of these will do. And just as the mayor mentioned, this Saturday at Alonzo Williams Park, the mobile information station, that's the converted RV, is going to be there for the people in that neighborhood from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The survey, hard copies of the survey, and I think maybe even some laptops. I think they talked about having some laptops there for people to do the survey right on site, those who are, computer proficient. Next Saturday, the 12th, that same mobile information station will be out at the Northwest Recreation Center. I don't think they've determined a set place, but I think they're working with the city to either come up with some signage or to, make a specific location. And then the following Saturday, the 19th, The mobile information station will be at the Wekiva Riverwalk Shopping Center, not the Walmart on 441. So we'll be up near where the movie theater is on Wekiva and 436. And that will also be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then one last reminder, we're getting very close. The 15th of this month is the first large group community forum for as many people as possible to come out and begin to participate in the visioning process itself. It will take place from 6 to 9 p.m. and it's going to be at the community center Tuesday the 15th. Then 2 days later, Thursday the 17th, it'll be at Apopka High School, same time frame, 6 to 9. On the Tuesday the 22nd, they'll be at the University of Florida IFAS facility on Binion Road, again from 6 to 9. And then the last community forum is at Wolf Lake Middle School on Saturday the 26th from 1 to 4. It's not necessary to attend more than one of these sessions because the same topics will be handled at each of the 4 sessions. And last of all, on the 29th is the business forum, and people who have businesses as well as live in the city can attend both a regular forum and the business forum. And that's everything I wanted to remind everybody about.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
All right. I saw Tony MacArthur's hand.
Thank you. This is a follow-up to something I brought up under new business at the last city council meeting. And that is for documentation and presentation to the citizens of Apopka at a future soon city council meeting of the investments that the city has made over the years in various projects and to do a financial analysis of the return on the investment, lost opportunity costs, and things of that nature. And particularly pertinent is the Highland Manor property, since we're going to be soon entertaining a proposal. And this is not to play I gotchas or whatever, but I think it's highly appropriate when you're considering the sale of a property. They have a full accounting of all the monies we've spent on that property, including the various consultants that we paid, things, the real estate costs, full accounting of all the monies, whether it's 15 million, 20 million, so that we know, how much we've invested in the property, and then we can compare it against what we might recoup from the property. Now, maybe it's going to be a loss, hope not, but from what I read, it probably will be. But I think that's just very important and prudent of running any type of business or any type of investment. And it was sold to the public as an investment for the citizens of Apopka. Unfortunately, it hasn't. I don't think it will pan out monetary-wise. I hope it will. But and then the other things that the city has, quote, under the guise of investment for the citizens that I think are, again, out of scope of the responsibility of the city, but it was done anyway, that we should have, a report on where we are. The fixed-based airport operations that we bought some, 4 or 5 years ago. The UCF incubator. And we hired Richard Anderson to be a lobbyist and special consultant and things like that. And my understanding, part of the rationale to pay him a 6-figure salary for a couple of years to be a lobbyist is that there was going to be a return on investment, that we would get monies back from the state of Florida in terms of the legislature would approve funding for us. So I think it's appropriate to ask for a report on where we are with each of these. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other speaker cards?
Yes, sir. Gregory Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. I apologize. I have a nasty cold that I got from my wife, who's a math teacher at Ocoee High School. Every year she brings back the great viruses that they have going around those schools. So I apologize for sniffling. I've recently quit my job at Disney, and I've decided to go into real estate. And the reason I did that is because I'm excited about what you guys are doing. I told our mayor that I'm proud of him. And I am. I'm proud of all you guys. I think you are taking the helm of the city at a very difficult transition. And you seem to be doing a fine job of making the transition to what I would call a big city. Meaning, in the Apopka chief, it said that we're going to go from 45,000 to 137,000 or so people in this city, and it's going to happen over a fairly short period of time. So I have a clarification question first. Did I hear you say that you have a plan for downtown that you're working on?
Well, there is a request for proposals was issued in August. We received a response, and the staff is analyzing the response. The deadline was September what? September 24th, right? So we're going to go to... It was August 24th. August 24th. Okay, so September 24th is when we'll...
So these are concrete proposals of development or redevelopment that we might do in our downtown area.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a city redevelopment area mapped out from 10th Avenue to roughly Oak, I believe it is, and then Hawthorne to... that barrier is kind of squiggly. So I picked as my area to look at the real estate the south side of the CRA. Why? Because the land is really inexpensive there, because there's a multitude of problems, which I know you're aware of, that are kind of interlocking and keeping that area depressed financially. And I'm kind of a creative guy. I worked for Disney for a while, and they always told us at Disney, the managers told us, look, if you're in a situation and you're talking to a guest, and you're not sure what to do, you're not sure how to solve the problem, ask yourself, what would Walt Disney do? You guys laugh.
I've heard that before.
This guy took a piece of swampland. If you look at 1 square foot in front of Magic Kingdom, it was worthless property, and now it is priceless property. The world over. Internationally, I mean. Okay? So, thinking like Walt Disney, let's look at Apopka. At south of Apopka, if he's still here. There are solutions to the problems that are there. There is a concept in real estate called the best use of the land, the highest use. And for the lay people here, what that means is the top financial dollar you could get per square foot from that area by using it a certain way. Now, I'm also go ahead.
Mr. Johnson, with respect to everyone's time, we've said 4 minutes. I've let a couple people go a little bit longer, so...
Am I going long?
You're right at 4 minutes.
Okay, I just want to entice you. I have an idea for building some historical monuments, fake historical monuments that Walt Disney might have built, like Fort Apopka, and a 1750-era fort, which does not exist in the United States anymore, because they were temporary structures. An old town area. Every town around here has a historic district except for us, it seems like, because when I travel around, I see all these brown signs that say historic district, but we don't have one. Why not? So I have some ideas on how we might theme out this area and make it a nice area. How can I get involved?
Can you put your ideas on paper?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do that for us. Get that to me, and we'll run through the process.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Are there other speaker cards? Under new business? So we'll move to... Any other old business, council, before we move on? We'll move to new business, council, and this idea of a pre-agenda workshop. Glenn, can you... I'm sorry. Can you discuss the idea of a pre-agenda workshop?
This has actually been brought up by a couple of the commissioners directly to me in the past about providing time where you can be brought together basically to workshop things that are going to be on an agenda coming up. Convenience-wise, I was thinking that holding them possibly before directly before the individual meetings twice a month may be helpful. We wouldn't go over necessarily everything that was on the agenda itself, but some of the ones that are deeper in conversation, if you will, or information would be the ones that we try to touch on. And if you had specific questions, that would be the time to bring them up so staff could answer them at that time.
All right. Would anybody in the council care to address this?
Well, do the workshops have to precede the city council? Can we have a workshop before it's a different date?
Sure. I was just making the suggestion. It's totally up to y'all.
Yeah, because pre-city council, I mean, it's the first meeting of the month. I sit on the chamber board, so I would not be able to do both at the same time.
Right.
And then the pre-city council on the evening would take us really probably into midnight. So I'm for the workshops, and the reason why I'm for the workshops is because I do take a lot of time, specifically, from you during the week before the city council meeting, and you block out many hours, just to go over the agenda with me, and then you do it with me, you do it with each commissioner up here, especially for topics on the agenda that we know are going to be discussed in depth.
Right.
So I am for the workshops, and just before the city council meetings, I'm not too keen on that.
There's just not enough, there's not a great deal of time between the time the packets go out on Friday and the subsequent council meeting the next Wednesday.
Right.
That's when the information would be available, 95% of the time, if not more. So it's totally up to you, the five of you.
So that's something that we would have to decide.
Right. Commissioner Ruth?
Well, I'm a big advocate for it, and for a host of reasons. I mean, we just had an issue that come up today, the stiff. Without Mr. Irby's input, like he said, it was a 5-0 vote. The phone started on Thursday ringing, so I got a 2-week ring, and this is where that came from, because the questions I was getting asked were very specific, were very lengthy, and would need time for discussion. Now, not ever having that time afforded to me, it was kind of out there by myself and didn't know what to do. I was fortunate enough that Mr. Irby made time available for me, and I was one of the guys that says, hey, not necessarily on the first read, but the second read, and that's why I say it doesn't necessarily have to be the 2 days prior to the council meeting, because generally the 12-pound gorilla shows up on Thursday after you start getting public input. So somewhere between there and the next 2 weeks, I was asking for time to sit down to gather all these thoughts, gather all this information. So it was on the second read, we didn't necessarily hold something up for lack of information or lack of answers.
Okay. Well, just in general, I like the idea because I think it might, as Commissioner Velasquez mentioned, it might wind up being a more efficient use of Glenn's time, right? Instead of having to meet with all 5 of us individually to discuss things that are on the agenda, he can meet with us one time collectively and address questions that commissioners might have, prior to going into a commission meeting. So, but I'm also sensitive to the idea that Commissioner Velasquez sits on the so maybe what we can do is, over the next 2 weeks, come up with like a day that works for kind of everybody's calendar, right? Poll the council and see what might be a more workable day. Maybe it's Monday Monday at 5 or something like that, or 4:30 or something like that, that works with I'm also mindful of the staff time, because every time we ask the staff to stay after work, that affects their lives and their families as well. So,
I just, when you get the hard dates, though, it really, I work in a profession that's pretty. I have a great relationship with him. I don't want to tie him down, because I could call him on a Monday and say, hey, any day this week at this time would work for me.
Okay.
So I like a little bit of the flexibility, but I understand there's 4 of us.
Okay. All right, let's come back with a plan next time, okay? Okay. All right. Any other new business, council?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I would like to know, why is it that being a city commissioner, I cannot talk city business with our lobbyist? We pay him a nice salary, but yet you talk with him, but we can't.
Cliff, do you want to address that? That's part of the agreement that we have with them.
That is part of the agreement, and it is essentially for this reason, as I understand it. The idea is that we didn't want to be in a situation of having mixed messages communicated through different people based on facts that are manipulated. Now, I don't mean that you would do it or that he would do it. What I mean is that there is always the opportunity for one of you all to hear something differently than what was actually discussed, or to understand it differently. So the idea was, by having one messenger who was dealing with him, and he did ask, and I think he got some leeway to talk to commissioners, didn't he?
With Glenn, right.
Yeah, with Glenn.
You can meet with him with Glenn.
Yeah. And so, but that was the idea.
I don't want to meet with him with Glenn. I have been a lobbyist for the land grant colleges of the United States of America for 19 years. And my tongue has never been bridled that I could not talk to their lobbyists.
All right. We do have an agreement that both parties signed, and that's what the agreement calls for right this second.
Well, can't we change the agreement?
I guess we could by a vote of the council.
As long as Mr. Anderson would agree. It's a two-party agreement.
Say that again?
It's a two-party agreement. It has to be agreement on both sides. We can't unilaterally amend it.
Well, can't we bring it before the council and find out whether or not they want to do it?
We could bring it before the council.
I would like to make a motion, if it's in order, that we bring it before the council and have a vote on it.
Okay. Commissioner Dean has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it in the form of discussion.
Okay. I appreciate Commissioner Dean's sentiment. I think this is a unique case and a unique situation. The city has been working actually reasonably well under the terms of this agreement, and I do think that Richard has been very effective in the things that he has been doing. For example, bringing this RFP to the point where we actually have a very successful proposal, and some of the other things that he's working on behalf of, like the folks at Kelly Park Crossings. I know he's working with the Expressway Authority to help resolve an issue that Kelly Park Crossings has with the Expressway Authority. So I'm in favor of leaving the agreement the way that it is.
I bet you are.
And that's how I would vote.
Well, we've made the motion. It's been seconded, so let's take a vote.
Yeah, how's it different from any other lobbyist? Well, I haven't really thought about it until you bring it up. But
I don't know. I'm not familiar with how other lobbyists deal with other jurisdictions.
I don't know that he's different than other lobbyists, but he's also a consultant beyond just being a lobbyist. So the deal that we have with him, a contract or whatever, covers two areas. Lobbying is just one of those. He's also a consultant on the projects like the downtown and various other things that are separate and apart from his lobbying duties. The lobbyists that we deal with, essentially, and it's the difference between a strong mayor city like this one of two in Orange County, and the weak mayor, strong commission, strong city manager cities that I represent in other places. And the bottom line is, in those cities, the commission or the council puts together its projects for the lobbyist that it wants to work on, or the lobbyist brings forth an idea or ideas that they want to work on, and it's voted on, and that's what the lobbyist is to pursue. So the difference here is that instead of speaking as a commission as a whole, which would happen if it were a strong manager form of government, you have a strong mayor, and he's the one who gets to make that, or she, if it were a she, gets to make that call. But that's the difference.
All right.
I think we ought to be able to talk to him. I don't think he ought to be accountable to us. I mean, as far as individually or anything like that, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that anything he comes to us with should be before the full body,
But we can talk to him, right? If
I'm
we
sorry?
want to talk to him, I go through our Chief Administrative Officer, Glenn Irving.
Yes. That's the current provision of the agreement. All right. Any other discussion by the council? I'm just going to say clearly I intend to vote no against Commissioner Dean's motion. Okay? All right.
Why do you do that ahead of a vote? Why do you
Well,
I don't understand how you do that.
Yeah, I can't understand how you can do that either.
I just want.
But you signal
it clear.
You
I'm going to vote on this.
But you signal how you're going to vote before. You said earlier today how you were going to vote on that agreement.
Right.
Why don't I get the same consideration?
Okay. Touche.
All right.
But doesn't Richard have a say right now?
Well, if the council were to vote for Commissioner Dean's motion, then we would have to negotiate with Richard because it is a two-party agreement. All right.
Well, what is it that you would want to discuss with Richard that we couldn't do with Glenn being in the office? Because I'm more comfortable in that situation.
We are talking about strictly city business, right?
I assume you're talking about things, I would assume that you would talk about things that would either fall into the two categories of services he renders. One is lobbying, and then others are certain special projects that are identified, one of which I remember being the downtown mayor. You may remember some of the others, but that one I remember specifically. I think the hospital was on there
The
too, right?
hospital, Kelly Park crossings, and then any other thing that he's working on.
So basically, those are the things. They're all things that would come here in one way or the other at some point, and so there you go.
But we do have the ability to speak to them on a social basis.
I don't have the agreement memorized, but I believe the limitation is on anything having to do with what the service he's provided. He's prohibited from just talking to you individually, and it was amended essentially to allow for this tri-party kind of a thing where Glenn is present.
I mean, I've seen him on a social basis, and I've spoken to him, but I'm comfortable with any city business that Glenn be present. I mean, that's me. That's how I feel. I'm comfortable with the arrangement that we have.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the council? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. No.
No.
All right. I hear 3 votes for no and 2 votes for aye.
And I want it clear, I voted no, not because you voted no.
Okay.
You're not going to talk to him anyway, so it
All
doesn't
right.
matter.
The motion fails. The motion fails. All right. Is there any other new business, council?
Just want to say one thing. With the stiff amendment that was on for tonight, that was on today, was passed. The last 2 hours of last night, I spoke to Glenn, and he was the one that I discussed the payout. and I just want to make that clear, that
Okay.
I did not speak to anyone other than Glenn. I had him here till 6 o'clock last night.
All right, thank you. New business public. Mr. Fenwick. I'm sorry.
Dale Fenwick, same address, haven't moved yet. Just a couple of short things. One, it's nice to see that we're going to have a statistically significant survey. Those volunteer surveys that have been going on for months have no statistical validity to them, so it's good to see that we're going to have one of those. I like the idea of the pre-agenda workshops, by the way. I presume they'd be open to the public, similar to the budget workshops. That would be helpful to the public as well as to the council. The statue for Mayor Land, or in honor of him, is a great idea. I presume at an estimated cost, I heard $100,000. Sounds like a budget revision item. Also, wouldn't that require sealed bids?
Well, there's been a lot of work that's been done so far. The statues have been designed, for example, and there's
no cost.
I will have all those details by the time we have another meeting.
Okay. And finally, not to revisit the STIF, but the comment on the process that bothered me towards the end of that conversation. I'm not sure I like the idea of elected officials having private meetings with developers who are asking the city to provide millions of dollars, $6 million in this particular case, of financing without any notice to the public or any opportunity for the public to be there. And frankly, what I observed here was there was one meeting, there were supposed to be maybe 3, they didn't happen. One meeting happens, and what I thought was I understand cash flow really well. And the idea of spreading out the cash makes a whole lot of sense. Okay? The developer apparently had agreed to that. That's what I was getting from the conversations that were going on. But then the thing became unraveled. And I'm not talking about the agreement. I'm talking about the process by which a developer comes in and wants to meet one-on-one with any or all of you. I'm troubled by that. Now, I mean, if we're talking a few hundred, tens of thousands of dollars for a project here or there, okay, fine. But we're talking $6 million in financing here. I'm troubled by those private meetings.
We don't have private meetings with the developer one-on-one. I have them with Mr. Glenn Irby. He arranges for them.
Did you have a private meeting?
We don't make decisions one-on-one either. I mean, the decisions have to come back to the 5 votes.
I understand that.
Okay.
But you had a private meeting.
I had a meeting in Mr. Irby's office.
Okay, so it wasn't just you and the developer.
It was in Mr. Irby's conference room. It was.
Okay, just to be clear. Okay, it was you and the developer. You happened to have it in his conference room.
We did. And
I'm
we had
troubled.
prior to that with him present.
Yeah, and I'm just expressing this. I'm troubled by that concept, and if you're not troubled, if no one else is troubled by it, well, then I'll just have to learn to live with that.
Well,
I'm not
that's the reason why we're looking to do the workshop.
So under the law in Florida, right?
I understand it's not a sunshine issue.
Right. So you can't meet collectively, right? And there has to be some opportunity, at least on a complex topic, to have some kind of briefing about the nature of that complex topic, so that you don't have to spend all your time in a public meeting acquainting yourself with the details. That's the purpose of having those individual meetings, and it's kind of like the best you can do with what you have to work with. I mean, that's how Florida law has set it up for local governments.
I realize that. I'm just troubled.
Okay. All right. I see Tanita's hand.
Tanita Reed, 651 O'Leary Court. I'm very happy about Mayor Land doing the 2 statues. It's funny because on the Parks Committee, we did our recommendations, and, I had a whole load of recommendations as well as the other committee members. And one thing I said that we definitely need some kind of sculptures and I said upscale sculptures for Kitland Nelson Park, because we have the showcase, the Apopka Art and Foliage Festival there, and been there for years. And, you know, I go over to Lake Eola sometimes on occasions when they have festivals, and I see the big sculptures they have there in the park. They have one that goes out over the lake with, it's like a whole flock of birds. I don't know what kind of metal it's made out of, but it starts at the edge of the lake and goes out upwards over the lake. And then I go to, we go up here to Eustis sometimes at Ferron Park and fish. And they've got an artist, they have a big, like a gray heron done in metal in the fountain. It's beautiful. It's been there a few years, and they commissioned the artwork there. So I was real happy to hear about the sculptures, one going at Kitland, and one, I call it sculpture statues, I think you called it, but sculpture, statue, it's all the same. And on a humorous note, I was looking at those pictures up there, and I just bust out laughing. I got real tickled when I saw the one, well, I didn't have my glasses on, but the one of Maryland, and I laughed and I said, it looks like he has on a pink jumpsuit. I think it was in color. And it looked like he had a pink jumpsuit on, and I just got tickled at that. But I know that, you know, I guess it's going to be in bronze, right? Yeah. So there won't be any wild outfit.
No.
All right. Thank you.
No.
He won't be in a pink.
No. All right. Any other new business public? Going once, going twice. Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.